All right, welcome everyone. I am really excited to get to talk to you today. My name is Josiah Wiles. I'm the sales team director at Thrive Agency. Going to be talking today about growing on purpose. And really what that means is how do we strategically invest our marketing dollars to reach our growth goals or our revenue goals? Before we jump in, I just want to say if you have questions, please feel free to add those. If you're on Facebook, just add a comment. If you're on Zoom with us, then put it in the Q&A section. And I'm going to do my best to answer those as we go through the presentation today. So just to start out, a little bit of background on me. So I oversee the sales teams here at Thrive. We have a couple of different brands. Thrive Agency is a digital marketing company. We do a variety of different things, including search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, social media, web design, video and photography, and a few complementary services. We also have a separate brand, Rise Reviews. Rise is a reputation management company that primarily focuses on review acquisition, getting more positive reviews for your business online. So I handle the management of our sales teams across both of those brands. I've been with Thrive for about 4 years. Originally, I was a salesperson. We refer to our salespeople as marketing consultants here at Thrive, before eventually moving into my current role, overseeing that team. In the past 4 years, I've worked with hundreds of different businesses of all different types in a wide number of verticals to help them build really good marketing plans, really good strategies, and achieve the goals that we work with them to set on the front end. Currently, I manage a 27-person team, and we meet with about 600 or 600 plus businesses every month. So we have a wide exposure to a large variety of different types of businesses. And so this presentation is ideally going to be helpful to B2B companies, B2C companies, large businesses, small businesses, and anybody in between. You'll get a copy of this presentation afterwards. Aaron, who's on the call here with me, is going to send that out. And it has a link to my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to chat further after this. So getting started, most companies that we talk to come in with a few different pain points. One of the biggest ones, I think, is a lack of direction. So today what I want to talk about is how do we set goals and why do we set goals? What's the purpose behind that? And then how do we achieve those goals? So when I started at Thrive, Thrive set a pretty good example for me to see why this is valuable to a business. Thrive developed a roadmap in 2016 that planned out the next 4 years of revenue growth and the number of clients that we wanted to work with. So we had a goal called Vision 2020 that we knew that we wanted to hit a certain revenue number by the end of 2020, and we wanted to work with a certain number of businesses. Most companies that I talk to have grown by accident. That's what I refer to it as. Typically what I mean by that, what I see most often is they provide a really good service. They're a good company. They do a good job at whatever it is that they do, but they don't have a lot of direction in where they want to go in the future. They're living mainly on referrals, living mainly on word of mouth, having to earn that next client by doing a great job for this client. And that's not a bad thing. It's just something that we want to help see beyond that, see the other opportunity that's out there. So this is very normal. And I'd say probably at least 50%, maybe 70% of the businesses that we talk to are in this situation. So what we want to help do with every business that we work with, and what we want to encourage you to do is to stop growing by accident and start growing on purpose. Figure out where you want to go. And the first thing that you need to do is figure out, why do you want to get there? We call that your what if. We believe that all growth starts with a what if. Typically a what if is, what's going to happen if I achieve these goals? I'm going to be able to save up for my kids' college funds, or I'm going to be able to buy a new house because I have a growing family, or I'm going to be able to provide a better level of employment for my employees, and then they can do those things. So everybody has a what if. So one of the challenges that I often talk to clients about is determining, what's your what if? Why do you want to grow? What are you trying to achieve in your personal life that's driven by this growth? So first thing I would ask is that everybody think about that a little bit. Think about, why do you want to grow? Why do you want your business to grow? What's that going to mean for you personally? What's that going to mean for your employees? And what's that going to mean for the clients that you work with? So why do goals matter? You can think of it kind of like sailing a ship, right? We're in the middle of the ocean, and if we don't know where our target destination is and we're just floating listlessly around, we may end up there if we get lucky. Or we may just get lost and we may lose focus on what's really important in our business. We believe that setting goals is going to give us the direction that we need to make the right choices in the business to make it successful. So I would challenge each of you to think about what's your roadmap? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do with your business, and what do you want to achieve? So first thing I'd like to do is just ask a question. You can reply in the comments or you can reply in the Q&A section. How far out are you setting your growth goals currently? Are you setting them out less than a year? Like, I just want to make payroll next month? Or are you setting them out 5 years plus? Do you know, hey, by 2025, we want to be at $10 million in revenue, or we want to be at $50 million in revenue? So just give a little feedback there as to how far out are you wanting to do this. I would encourage you to think strategically ahead. So think about, where do I want to be in my personal life in 5 years? Where do I want my employees to be? And then what does that mean that the business needs to achieve? So look at it from a longer term perspective. I know that it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of the day-to-day and choose the urgent over the important. But we believe this is something that's going to really drive your marketing, and it's going to drive the way that you acquire your clients. So this is really a critical piece. The next thing is, how do we set a marketing budget? So we've set our growth goal. We know we want to achieve X dollars in revenue over the next 5 years. How much should you be investing in digital marketing? This is a question that we get from clients all the time. It's probably one of the most common questions that we see in our sales process. People come in and say, you tell me how much I should invest. Well, I would push that back on you and say, how much are you willing to invest? Most companies, they don't have a clear picture of how should we be setting this marketing budget. So there's a few different ways that you can do it, and I'll talk through those really quickly. But first question is, what's the norm for most businesses? What I would tell you is that it's going to vary pretty widely depending on the type of business that you're in. A realtor is going to have a very different idea of what's the norm for my marketing budget versus a company that's a $500 million manufacturing company. So understanding where you are today is going to be really helpful in setting that budget. Ideally, what we recommend is choosing a percentage of your revenue to invest in digital marketing. The norm is anywhere from 2 to 10% of your revenue, depending on the situation that you're in currently, that will allow you to say, okay, I have a fixed dollar amount now. I know I'm going to invest this into marketing. And now let's figure out, how do we allocate it? So a few things that you want to look at when you're trying to determine what is that percentage, or what's that dollar amount that I want to be putting into marketing. The first thing is your competition. So there's some great tools out there that you can use, tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, SpyFu, and a few others that will allow you to get some pretty good insight into what are your competitors doing from a digital marketing standpoint, how much are they spending, and where do they rate compared to me. So looking at that is a really critical piece. It's going to help you understand, okay, if my competitor is doing search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising and social media, and I can see all of that, and we can get an estimate that maybe they're spending $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month on PPC. That will give you some good benchmarks to understand, where should I be putting my money and how much should I be putting in. The next thing we want to look at is audience. A lot of companies come in and don't really have a very defined idea of what does their audience look like, who are they trying to reach. Some come in and are hyper-focused and they understand, I'm trying to reach this specific segment of people, but most companies don't. They know that their product or their service can be applicable to a large number of people. So looking at the size of your audience and how your audience interacts online is going to allow you to get a good picture of, where should my money be going and how much money should I put into these different places. So if you're a real estate agent targeting Arlington, Texas, you know that you have a set number of people that are coming to Arlington or live in Arlington currently who are going to be looking for a new home, or a range of a number of people, versus a company that maybe is an e-commerce company that can sell anywhere in the United States. Your audience is going to be much wider, and then it's going to be more variable based on, are these people interested in my product, the type of product that I sell. The next thing you want to look at is your vertical. So if you're in, if you're a plumber or HVAC company, typically you're working on a more local scale. Some companies are larger and they have multiple locations in a variety of cities. Then you have other companies out there that, maybe you're an attorney, and maybe you have a large law firm that practices in multiple states. So you want to understand kind of where you are in terms of from a vertical standpoint, because that's going to determine a lot about how competitive your market is. For example, let's say you're a personal injury attorney. We know that personal injury attorneys are typically in a very competitive digital marketing space. They have a high dollar amount that comes in on a new client, and they have a high dollar amount that they need to spend to acquire that new client, versus something that maybe is a little more niche or a little bit lower cost, in comparison. The last thing I would encourage you to look at is geography. Are you targeting, a small city, a suburb of a city, or are you targeting a state, or are you targeting nationwide or internationally? Understanding that is going to help determine how much you should be putting into your marketing budget. So another question for everybody, if you could just put this in the comments or the Q&A section. How do you currently set your marketing spend? Is it a percentage of revenue? Is it a fixed dollar amount that you've set that you're going to spend every month? Is it variable depending on maybe your mood, or if you've heard something new that you want to try out? Or do you not currently have a marketing spend? I'd be interested to hear from those watching kind of where they fall on that. And while we wait on some of those replies, I want to talk a little bit about how do we calculate your ROI. So we talked about setting a goal. We talked about setting a budget. Those are the first two pieces, but really the most important piece here is understanding what's the return on the investment from the money that I'm spending. So let's say that we've set our budget out. We know we're going to put this money in. Now let's talk about how does that return to us, or what money are we getting back from that? So first question, where are you investing now? This is just a good self-evaluation. For example, Thrive, we invest in a variety of different things. We invest in search engine optimization, paid advertising, referral sites, directory sites, a large number of things, as well as employees. So we have a dedicated marketing team. Aaron, who's on the call with me, he oversees what's called our demand generation team. Their entire job is to market for Thrive. So getting an understanding of where are my marketing dollars going now is going to be helpful to kind of lay the groundwork for the rest of this. Then understand your target channels. So what we typically see is smaller businesses are typically investing in cheaper channels. So for example, Facebook advertising. Facebook advertising, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get, there's a pretty wide reach that you can achieve through Facebook advertising. But it's typically not as targeted as something like search engine optimization, where we're reaching people who are actively seeking out what we offer. So understanding that is beneficial. And larger businesses typically have a much more diverse channel mix. So they're going to be investing a portion of their money in a wide variety of different marketing channels. And what that means is they've understood and calculated the ROI typically. And they understand if I allocate this money into this channel, this money into this channel, and this money into this channel, I'm going to have a pretty good picture of what I'm going to get back from those dollars. So this is pretty much spot on with what we see when clients come into Thrive. The smaller the business, the more they're investing in lower cost channels. The larger the business, the more widespread their spend is. Next thing you want to do is understand your target audience. So how do they interact online? Let's say that you are, for example, a restoration company. Let's say you do water and fire damage restoration. It's pretty typical that we see that the people that are actively looking for that's more of an emergency service, meaning that they're going to search on their phone, they're going to search through Google or through Bing, and they're going to find at the very top of the list the companies that are ranking well, or the companies that are running paid ads, and they're going to click on that, they're going to call, they're going to get an estimate, and they're going to get somebody out because they need somebody now. Whereas, other services like product-based services or e-commerce services, people may do a large amount of research before deciding to move forward with a purchase. So understanding your target audience is really important and how they are going to use these different channels when they're online. Another piece of that is, for example, we talked about e-commerce. People are more willing to buy low-cost products through a social ad when they're not actively searching for that product, but maybe they saw a video or they saw something on Facebook or on Instagram and the product looks cool and it only costs $15. They're going to be more willing to do that than they are to work with a realtor or to hire an HVAC company, because there's not that immediate need, and also the dollar amounts are much higher. So typically it's not going to be a direct conversion like we would see for something like e-commerce. The next thing we want to do is build personas. What does our typical customer look like? What's their age demographic, their gender, their income, where do they live, and then what are their interests? So trying to understand your customer really well and figure out why are they going to make the decisions that they're going to make? Why is our product or our service a good fit for them? And then lastly here is understanding the buyer's journey. So let's say that someone is interested in what you offer. What's the process that they have to follow to go from not knowing who you are to actually purchasing from you? So understanding how does a Facebook ad differ from someone doing a Google search? And how does that change the way that they interact with your website and with your content and when they reach out to you? And then break down customer intent by channel. So I touched on this a second ago, but basically look at how do people interact on that particular channel and what's their intention behind those actions. So if someone gets on Facebook or gets on Instagram, typically they're trying to interact with their family or their friends. They're trying to see things that are funny or entertaining. They're not actively seeking to buy something or to engage with a company. So understanding that that's a little bit of a different animal than search engine optimization or pay-per-click advertising, where people are actively seeking out a service or a product and they're going to make a buying decision. That's why they're looking. So understanding that intent by channel is going to help us allocate our budget effectively. Then you want to understand your conversions. So there's a couple of different types of conversions that you'll see. The first, this is kind of our language, but this is pretty common to see it this way. The first is a lead. A lead is a form fill out on your website, a phone call or an email coming directly to you, and they're reaching out to you with interest in what you offer. Typically, they're providing buyer information like phone numbers, email addresses, first and last name, information that is identifiable. And usually these are immediate sales opportunities. So these are people that are looking to make a decision quickly, otherwise they wouldn't have reached out to you. Then to separate that, we have prospects. Prospects are people who interact with your content. These are people that maybe they sign up for your newsletter, or maybe they read your blog actively, or maybe they touched your business in some way, but maybe it was not a direct outreach where they didn't provide your information. Typically, you're going to have a little more limited data in regards to buyer information with these type of conversions. So these are what we call a nurturing opportunity, meaning we want to go in and continue to feed them our content so that they can become familiar with our brand. And when they are ready to make a decision, they think of us first. So you can think of retargeting is a very common tool that's used for this. So if someone comes to your website, displaying an ad to them when they leave the site on other websites to keep your content and your brand fresh in their minds. So when they're looking for whatever it is that you offer, they think of you. Now we want to talk about calculating your value per lead and forecasting. First thing to note is it's critical to understand how much is a lead worth to your business. Not how much is a new client worth, how much is a lead worth. So when someone reaches out, how much money is that in your pocket? So let's look at the formula. It's pretty simple. We want to look at our target audience. This means how many people total can we reach? A simple way to do this, let's say we're talking about search engine optimization. We can look at search volume. So we know that, let's say I'm a HVAC company in Arlington, Texas. I know that there are 2,000 people a month searching for air conditioning repair, Arlington, Texas. So I'd take that number and then I would look at the click-through rate. So what percentage of people are going to click on my site? And that's largely determined by where I rank. It's determined by a few other factors as well. So we want to see of all the people that we're trying to reach, how many of them are actually going to click on our site. And then we want to see how many of those are actually going to convert into a lead. So that gives us our number of conversions. So an example data point here is, let's say our target audience is 100,000 people. We have a 15% click-through rate and then a 3% conversion rate on our website. That would equal 450 total conversions or 450 leads that have reached out to us. Next, you need to understand your average deal size. So this formula is really simple. Divide your total new revenue by the number of transactions. So let's say that you made $100,000 and you know that you had 200 customers, then you know that your transaction amount is $500 per transaction. This is going to vary widely depending on what vertical you're in and what you sell. But understanding that is really important here. And then lastly, we need to understand our close rate. What percentage of those leads, those 450 leads that came to us, are actually going to turn into a customer? It's pretty funny to hear most business owners, they think their conversion rate is somewhere like 90 or 100%. They always say things like, if I can get them on the phone, then I'm going to close them. In reality, that's typically not the case. First of all, because you may not get them on the phone. They may fill out a form and reach out to you, but you may never actually talk to them. Secondly, you're always going to have company or people that are looking at multiple companies for a specific service. That just happens. That's natural. So we're going to use a simple number here of about 20%. Now we can understand the true value of a lead. So we have 450 leads at a 20% close rate. That gives us 90 transactions. 90 transactions at $500 per transaction, $45,000. So we know $45,000 divided by 450 leads means that every lead that comes in the door is worth $100 to us. This is probably going to change the way that you interact with your leads. They're going to become more valuable once you realize how much they could be worth to you. So every time somebody reaches out to us, there's $100 in our pocket. That's the way we can view that. The next thing is to calculate the total return on your marketing budget. What we often will see is return on ad spend. That's what most people are calculating. That misses some really key points here. So don't just include your ad spend. If you're putting $1,000 into Facebook ads every month, that's not your only cost. You also need to look at how much are you paying employees who may be running the marketing? How much are you paying to an agency who may be running the marketing? What are the technology costs that you're paying for? If you're using a CRM or if you're using any kind of marketing tools, what's the cost there? And the ad spend that we mentioned earlier. So include all of those to get a much better picture of what's your overall marketing budget. What are you spending in total? So now to understand the formula for the total return on your marketing budget, it's very simple. Divide your total return by your total cost. So on the last slide, we talked about $45,000 per month in total return. Let's say that your monthly cost is $20,000. Your return on your marketing budget is 2.25 or 225%. So now that's really helpful to us to understand how do we grow to where we want to grow, because we can say, okay, if I spend $1, I know that I'm going to make $2.25 in my current marketing plan. That tells us, okay, well, I want to make X number of dollars over the course of the next year. Well, then I need to be investing this much, at least at this point, until the marketing is more fine-tuned. The number's not static. It doesn't stay the same all the time. It's going to vary probably daily or weekly or monthly. It'll be channel dependent. So it's going to change depending on if we're talking about search engine optimization or paid advertising. It's going to be growth dependent. So how well you rank in Google is going to impact how much it costs you to generate a sale. So understanding that there's almost always a point of diminishing return where you could invest double the amount, but you may not make double the money in return is an important piece here. So that's going to be helpful to you as you try to calculate where do we want to grow to and how much money do we need to invest to get there. What I would say is this needs to be a longer term plan. You need to be tracking this over time and getting averages, not taking a snapshot view. We'll oftentimes have companies come to us and say, well, over the course of the past year, this is what happened, but in the last month, this has happened. And we say, that's great. Well, we really want to look at this from a higher level and say, okay, what's happened over the last 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years to get a better picture of how have things changed over time and what are the averages that we're seeing across that time span. That's going to allow us to make smarter decisions rather than trying to follow the immediate trends that happen, because we know that digital marketing is changing all the time and there's also a lot of fluctuation. Next thing we want to do is determine channel specific ROI. So we've determined our overall ROI. Now we want to break it down by channel. So we don't just want to understand that if I spend $1, I make $2.25. That's great. That assumes that we're going to continue the same allocation of our marketing dollars. We're going to continue to put X percentage into SEO, X percentage into PPC, X percentage into social. What this will help us do is understand what's the ROI from each channel and how do we reallocate that budget to make our marketing dollars more effective for us. So the key to smart marketing investments is apply the formulas we just covered to every marketing channel and compare the results. A couple of key points here. The first thing is you'll need to make sure that you're accurately tracking your data. You should be using a tool like Google Analytics. You should be using a CRM if you're generating leads. This is a little more simple for e-commerce companies oftentimes because they'll have tools available for reporting. But if you're doing lead generation, if you're trying to get people to reach out to you, you should try using a CRM or making a simple CRM in something like Google Sheets or Excel, where you can accurately track your data and understand the sales funnel. The next thing is the data needs to be correctly segmented in order to ensure data accuracy. What I mean by that is we want to make sure that we're accurately tracking what's coming in from Facebook ads, what's coming in from SEO, what's coming in from PPC. That's going to allow us to make sure that our data is real and right. So this is something that a company like Thrive can help with, or many of you probably have this capability on your own, but making sure that you set this information up correctly is going to allow us to make the correct decisions in the future. The data is going to vary a lot between channels. You'll probably see different transaction amounts. You may make bigger sales coming through SEO than you do through social. You may see, different costs to acquire the leads between these channels. So it may cost you a little bit more to generate a lead through SEO than it does through other channels. You'll see different audience sizes. Basically, the point is each of these channels is going to be unique. So understanding them on a channel by channel basis is important. For example, I put a little formula in here just so you could get a picture of what this looks like. Let's say that we're a business that spends $20,000 on Facebook ads every month, but we make $100,000. That gives us a 500% return. On SEO, we spend $5,000, but we get an $80,000 return. That's a 1,600% return on investment. Google ads, we spend $40,000 and make $50,000. So pretty minimal return, only 125%. And then email marketing, we spend $10,000 and make $40,000, so a 400% return. So in this example, we can see that SEO, Facebook ads, and email marketing all have a much higher return than Google ads. So that's the first step, but what often will happen here is that we'll make decisions based on this high-level number, these high-level numbers right here. That's typically a mistake, and I'll show you why. Conversion assists are something that a lot of companies don't understand or don't really track very well. What this means is you typically, when you're talking about the average lead that's generated, it typically takes 7 touches or 7 times for them to see your brand before they decide to actually reach out to you. What this means for us is, in our previous example, let's say that email marketing is getting us that 400% return, but the majority of the people signing up for our newsletter that we're marketing to and that we're getting that great return from are coming from PPC. They're coming from Google ads. So what that means for us is that high-level snapshot view we saw a second ago is a step too high. It's not giving us a very clear picture of how is this really impacting our bottom line. So understanding that PPC might be driving things to other channels, when we can really track that accurately, we can say, okay, it's still valuable for us to continue to invest in PPC because that's driving conversions across these other channels. So making sure that you don't lose a critical piece of your marketing plan because you're only looking at the high level numbers. So the direct return myth is kind of what this means. It's basically, if this channel is not generating enough of a direct return for me, I'm going to turn it off, or I'm going to greatly scale down my budget. We see this all the time. We have companies that come to us and say, I'm not ever going to invest in Google ads again. And we'll ask them why. And they'll say, well, hey, I spent, $5,000 in 2 months and I got no leads. And then once you start looking into the data, you can see that, well, you didn't get any direct leads, but you generated a lot of good traffic that then you ended up converting through other channels. So just make sure that you understand that and make sure that you're looking at this from a more granular view so you can understand how does each of these channels play a role in the overall return on our investment. So next we're going to talk about scaling with an agile investment approach. What this means is, many of you have probably heard of an agile methodology. Essentially, it's changing as data comes in. So being willing to change and not sticking just to what you set up front, being willing to adjust over time. We have this built into our model. We use what's called the agile SEO approach, meaning that we look at the data every month and we adjust our strategy over time based on the results that we're getting and the data that we see. So what this comes down to is reallocation, expansion, and diversification. First step is we looked at the different marketing channels that are getting us a return. We looked at how they may be interacting with each other. We want to maximize and reallocate to our top performing channels. We know that on that slide, 2 slides ago, that SEO is getting us a 1,600% return. We want to take some of our budget and shift it over there because we know that that's working really well for us. We know that email marketing is getting us a lot of value. Well, we want to invest in ways to increase our subscriber list and target the right people. So maybe we want to reallocate some of our budget to social or to PPC to drive more people to that email list. So start with your best performers and then diversify. One thing that we'll often see is companies who are wholly dependent on one or two marketing channels. So maybe they get all of their leads through Facebook ads, or they get all of their leads through Google ads. This is a major risk for a lot of businesses, and it's something that needs to be thought about as you're building out a good, strong marketing plan. Let's say that you're fully dependent on Facebook ads, and then your Facebook account gets deactivated or gets banned. Well, you've just lost all your leads. Same thing with Google ads. If you're 100% dependent on Google ads and Google suspends your account, well, you've just lost all of your leads. Same thing with SEO. If you get a Google penalty, you've just lost all your leads. So make sure that you're diversifying here. Even though the return may not always be as great in some of the other channels, it is still good to have a positive return, and it is still kind of a fail-safe in case your major channels have any kind of interruption. So this is something to really, I would say this is kind of an urgent item for a lot of companies. They come in dependent on one or two channels, and it's just too risky. You really need to think about that. Then use your profits from your top performers to test new channels. Let's say that we have a good margin and we're making a lot of money through SEO. Take some of that money that you're making from SEO and go test out LinkedIn advertising, or go test out some of these other channels that you think may be valuable. This is something that can be guided by an agency like us, or if you have a marketing team, or if you're doing your marketing yourself. It's good to experiment and test other channels to see what kind of return you get. I typically recommend using what I would call a test budget, meaning you don't go all in on the channel until you know how it's going to work. So start with a test budget, run some tests, look at the data and figure out, is this valuable to me? And if it's not, move on, move to the next channel, find other opportunities. The next thing is continuous improvement. So we talked about the agile methodology. That's basically what this means. We want to continuously optimize. So just because you're ranking well in SEO today does not mean that you're going to continue to rank well in 6 months. Your competitors are doing this as well. You always want to be looking for that competitive edge. So make sure that you are optimizing your spend. Make sure that you're optimizing all of the different marketing channels that you're investing in an ongoing way all the time. This is the benefit that an agency provides, but it also could be done, by you or by your team. Just make sure that you're constantly testing and improving and reallocating to make sure that you're getting the maximum ROI possible. Learn from your mistakes. We talked about moving on from channels that don't work very well. This is something that a lot of companies, learning from their mistakes means they completely pull out of digital marketing, or they, make drastic decisions. I would encourage you to always temper yourself a little bit and try to find the next good opportunity. There have been plenty of times at Thrive where a company comes in and we think that one thing is going to work really well and then it doesn't. That doesn't mean that we're telling them, hey, you need to turn off your digital marketing. That means that we're telling them, hey, this didn't work as well as we had hoped. Let's go and reallocate this budget over here and work in a different channel. And we know we have this other channel over here that's working well, so let's take some of the budget and put it back over there and continue to get you a positive return. Just a shameless plug of Thrive. Using an agency provides a lot of benefits. I would not feel good about myself if I didn't talk about this, but typically when you're working with an agency, and especially an agency like us, you're getting years of experience across a very diverse skill set. So people that have been working in the industry a long time, and you're getting a large number of people who have skills in a lot of different areas. You get a full team of experts, and you get people whose whole job is to make sure that they're on top of best practices and trend management, making sure that, are we doing the things that are going to give the best possible results to our clients? So this is an area that I think is really valuable for a lot of companies, especially if they're looking to grow, is engage with an agency who knows what they're doing. Talk to an agency, get a consultation. We do that with hundreds of businesses every month, and get their opinion and get their feedback and get a proposal from them. This is going to allow you to essentially have an extension of your own team who has the technical knowledge and the marketing understanding to make you successful. So highly encourage that. At the end here, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone. It's been a good 30 or 40 minutes. Hopefully you gained some value today. If you're interested in any more information, if you'd like to talk to me or to anybody on my team, just reply with your answer and your email address in the Q&A section or in the comments. I'm happy to set up a time to talk to you or have somebody on my team meet with you and see if it's a good fit for us to work together, or just provide you kind of a benchmark of where you are today and give some thoughts or recommendations as to how we think you can grow. So just put those in here and then we will get this wrapped up. And if anybody has any additional questions that they would like to talk about, like I said, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also follow up with Aaron as well. And I know that he's going to be reaching out to many of you with the presentation. So feel free to chat with him, and he can connect you with me or connect you with somebody on my team. But just want to thank you all for the time. It's been great, and looking forward to connecting with many of you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.